She was running. Not the kind of running people do when they're late for something. No. This was the kind of running that rips through every inch of the body, the kind that turns breath into knives and fear into fuel. The kind of running that makes a person realize, very quickly, that life is a fragile thing and death can have a voice, a form, a scent. And tonight, death was behind her. Snow slapped against her bare feet, cold enough to cut skin. Every step sent a sharp sting through the wound on her thigh, the one glowing softly with that strange silver shimmer she hated, feared, and never asked for. The cold forest blurred around her, trees twisting into tall, dark shadows that looked like figures waiting to grab her. Her vision swam, the world spinning in half circles, but she kept running, refusing to stop, refusing to look back. Her breath tore out of her chest in ragged bursts. Every inhale burned. Every exhale trembled. But the worst part wasn't the pain or the cold or the way her body felt like it would collapse any second. The worst part was the voices. Not footsteps. Not shouts. Not wolves howling through the storm. No, what chased her was far more unsettling. Growling voices. Low, overlapping, chanting her name like a curse being repeated again and again by something not entirely human. Riley. The sound curled through the trees. It wasn't loud. Didn't need to be. It knew exactly where she was. The snowstorm raged around her, feral and wild, as if the sky itself wanted to bury her alive. Wind clawed at her hair, ripping strands free. Ice stung her cheeks. The storm was violent, blinding, merciless. But the storm wasn't the enemy tonight. No, the storm felt almost sympathetic compared to the hunger in those voices. She bit down on a shaky breath and pushed herself harder, forcing her numb legs to keep moving. The forest floor was uneven, roots sticking up like traps waiting for her to fall into. Every step felt uncertain. Every moment felt borrowed. Her body was shifting, partially violently. Her bones trembled beneath her skin. Her senses flickered between human and wolf. She didn't want to shift. Not here. Not now. Not with them so close. Silver sparks crawled beneath her skin, pulsing like lightning trapped inside her veins. Every spark brought pain. Real pain. Pain that made her want to collapse and claw at her own body until the power quieted again. But she couldn't stop. If she stopped, they would reach her. And if they reached her, she wouldn't get back up. She stumbled, nearly falling forward into the thick snow, but she caught herself on a tree trunk slick with ice. Her fingers dug into the bark. Her vision blurred again, double, triple, then snapped painfully into focus. The voices behind her were getting closer. Riley. She pushed off the tree and forced her legs to obey, sprinting through the forest like panic itself had taken the form of a girl. Branches slapped at her, tearing her skin. The cold air scorched her lungs. And still she ran. A sharp crack echoed behind her. Not a twig. Not a branch. A warning. She veered sharply to the left, feet slipping, arms flailing for balance. She nearly crashed into a fallen log, but she leaped over it with the last bit of strength she had left. Her breath hitched. She wasn't going to last much longer. And for one awful moment she let herself wonder if this was how she was supposed to die. Alone. Hunted. Terrified. A curse. A warning. An omen. Her wounded thigh throbbed with heat, the silver glow flickering through the fabric like something alive. She didn't understand it. She never had. All she knew was that it made people look at her with fear, then anger, then hatred. She didn't ask for it. She didn't want it. But right now it was all she had. She cut sharply through a cluster of trees, stumbling when the ground dipped under her unexpectedly. The forest thickened around her, branches clawing at her like hands pulling her back. Her legs were shaking uncontrollably now. Every step felt heavier, slower, like someone had tied weights to her ankles. Then she saw it. An uprooted tree, massive and half-decayed, lying across a small dip in the ground. Its dirty roots curled upward like fingers frozen in place. It wasn't shelter, but it was a momentary hiding place. She slid behind it with a gasp, her body trembling violently. Her knees hit the cold ground. Her hands pressed into the snow as she tried to quiet her breathing. Her heart thumped so loudly she was certain the forest could hear it. She pressed a hand to her thigh, fingers brushing the glowing wound, and forced herself to look away from the silver light pulsing through it. Her stomach twisted. He hated that light. He hated what it meant. He hated what it made people see when they looked at her. She hated the power whispering beneath her skin, begging to be set free, even though she knew it would hurt her if she let it out. Her body shook uncontrollably. Half shifting. Half human. Half wolf. Half something else entirely. She clenched her jaw, digging her nails into the snow as she tried to suppress the power crawling through her veins. A sharp pulse of heat surged through her chest, racing down her arms. Her breath caught. Then a flash of silver flame burst from her palm, lighting the snow for a split second. She muffled her scream with her fist. Pain shot through her arm like fire. Tears stung her eyes. That was the problem with her power. It never protected her. It never saved her. It only hurt her. She squeezed her eyes shut, pressing her forehead to the cold ground, trying to calm her breathing, trying to keep herself quiet. The trees around her whispered, their branches creaking under the weight of the storm. It didn't sound like wind. It sounded like voices, older, deeper, almost mournful. The forest knew her. The forest remembered her. And the forest warned her. Child of Silver, you run. Her breath caught. She wasn't sure if it was real or her mind playing tricks, but the way the branches curved, the way the wind shifted, the forest felt alive. She swallowed hard. The growling voices behind her grew louder, echoing through the trees. Riley. Riley. Her hunters. Not men. Not wolves. Something in between. Something twisted by fear, and power, and old hatred. She pressed her forehead deeper into the snow, the cold cutting into her skin. Her teeth chattered. Her body shook violently, the half-shift trying to force itself through again. Stay down, she whispered to herself. Stay quiet. Just breathe, breathe. Her heartbeat pounded in her head like a drum. The voices were close now. Too close. She heard footsteps finally, soft, slow dragging. Not running. Not rushing. Searching. A branch snapped nearby. Sharp, quick, intentional. Her breath froze in her throat. Someone had found her. Or something had. She didn't move. Didn't inhale. Didn't dare blink. The snowstorms strangled the forest, turning everything into a white blur. Her fingers curled into the ice, nails scraping against frozen dirt as her entire body tensed. She waited. 5 seconds. 10. Maybe 20. Then, a whisper. Not from the forest this time. Not from her hunters. But from memory. The mating ceremony. It hit her without warning, flashing through her mind so sharply she gasped. 6 strangers. All alphas. Tall, strong, powerful. Circling her like she was prey, or prophecy. Their hands touching her shoulders, her wrists, the back of her neck, testing her aura, reading her bloodline. Examining her like she was a weapon someone else had forged. She remembered their eyes. All different. All terrifying. And she remembered the moment she fainted. Her body going limp. Her vision blackening. Her knees buckling beneath her. Her breath disappearing. Someone caught her, she didn't know who. Strong arms lifting her. Voices overlapping. Chosen one. Or doomed one. She carries the mark. Too unstable. Too much power. She'll destroy us. She could still hear their whispers echoing inside her head as she crouched behind the uprooted tree, trembling so hard she could barely keep herself upright. She blinked rapidly, forcing the memories away, but they clung to her like frost on skin. She didn't ask to faint. She didn't ask to be chosen. She didn't ask to be feared. The forest snapped her back to the present with a second sharp crack. She jerked her head up. The sound came from only a few feet away this time. Her body stiffened. Her throat tightened. They had found her. Or were about to. No time left. No strength left. She pushed herself to her feet, legs shaking violently, and stumbled forward. Every step felt impossible. But she forced herself through the pain, through the fear, through the burning pulse in her thigh. Just move. Just breathe. Just survive. She pushed deeper into the storm, the wind slapping her face with ice. Her hair whipped around her, sticking to her skin. Her body felt like it was slowly shutting down, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The forest floor dipped again, the snow hiding the muddy ground underneath. She tripped, falling to her knees with a sharp gasp, but she pushed herself up, forcing her way through thick bushes drenched in frost. Her breath grew harsher. Her vision dimmed. Her wound pulsed brighter. And then, he saw it. The cliff. A sharp, unforgiving drop. A frozen ravine stretching below her like a white, silent grave. She tried to stop, but her feet slid across the icy ground. Her arms flailed wildly as she fought to keep her balance. Her foot slipped again, sliding dangerously close to the edge. She froze. Behind her, the hunters emerged. Their silhouettes stretching tall and distorted through the storm. Their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Their growls vibrating through the air. He swallowed hard, weak, trembling, broken. Not like this, she whispered. Her voice cracked. Her breath shook. She stepped back instinctively, and the ice beneath her feet cracked. A sharp, echoing sound. Deadly. Final. A promise. The ground trembled. The ice split again. And she knew. One wrong move. One wrong breath. One more second. She would fall. Her heart pounded once. Just once. Then stopped. And in that breathless moment the world held still. Before she falls, before her fate freezes over. Subscribe to Anne's Romance Collections. Because stories like hers only begin in the dark. The cliff groaned beneath her, the ice beneath her boots splitting again, the sound sharp enough to slice through breath. The ravine below waited like a silent throat ready to swallow her whole. The hunters behind her advanced in slow, deliberate steps, their shadows stretching long across the snow. She inhaled once, shallow and broken. The ice screamed. Then a voice cut through the world. A single word. Quiet. Cold. Commanding enough to silence the storm itself. Enough. The blizzard did not fade, it stopped. Snow hung in the air like suspended dust. Wind halted mid-howl. Even the cracking cliff seemed to pause, frozen in the moment before collapse. Her body trembled, not from cold now, but from the unnatural stillness swallowing the forest whole. Breath stuck somewhere between her ribs and throat as she turned her head, slowly, painfully, to the source of that voice. The hunters who had been stalking her, creatures built from hatred and old, twisted magic, stiffened like statues. Their glowing eyes flickered with something she had never seen in them before. Fear. Real fear. One of them whimpered. The sound wasn't human. The mist parted. Not gently, violently, like the storm itself tore open to let him through. A tall figure stepped into existence, boot first, cloak trailing behind him like a shadow dragging frost. Snow curled upward where his feet touched as if the storm bowed to him. He moved with an eerie, unhurried calm, his silhouette sharp against the white storm he had silenced. Then she saw his eyes. Arctic blue. Pure. Sharp enough to cut through bone. Glowing faintly, as if lit from within by the coldest flame. Those eyes found her instantly. Not her hunters. Not the cliff. Not the wound on her thigh pulsing silver through torn fabric. Her. Only her. Her stomach tightened, breath shuddering out of her chest. He didn't know him. He had never seen him. But the way he looked at her, controlled, unreadable, too knowing, felt like he had been watching her far longer than this moment. He stopped 10 paces away, boots sinking softly into the snow. Riley. Her name, spoken with a certainty that sliced through her panic. Her blood went cold. She hadn't told him her name. He hadn't asked. Behind her, the hunters dropped to their knees, claws digging into the frozen earth. Their snarls died in their throats, replaced with a trembling submission that didn't match the feral hunger they had just shown. He didn't spare them a glance. One of the creatures tried to retreat. Mistake. His gaze flicked toward it. Just a glance. The creature screamed as frost raced up its limbs, its body crystallizing in seconds before collapsing into glittering shards. Silence. The remaining hunters bolted into the trees, fleeing without pride, without noise, without looking back, vanishing into the storm like cowards chased by a greater predator. She couldn't move. The cliff beneath her gave another warning crack, but she couldn't tear her gaze away from the stranger in black. He didn't look surprised to see her. He didn't look relieved. He looked inevitable. As if her being here was a step in a plan he had memorized long ago. That he approached her without hesitation. Each step measured, silent, precise. Snowflakes melted before touching his cloak. Frost bowed away from his boots. She tried to speak, but her throat refused to shape sound. The cold around him wasn't natural. It pressed into her lungs, into her bones. When he reached her, she swayed, too close to the cliff, too close to unconsciousness. He moved faster than thought. His hand closed around her arm, firm, unyielding, warm despite the cold power radiating from him. Her body reacted instantly. Her wolf recoiled, fear instinctive and primal. Her wolf leaned forward, drawn, intrigued, hungry. Both reactions collided inside her, leaving her dizzy. His touch was not gentle, not cruel, deliberate. He lifted her away from the cracking edge as if rescuing her was an afterthought, as if he had done it before, as if he always knew she would step there. Her breath hitched as his arms wrapped around her for the first time. Her ribs grazed the leather of his armor. Her cheek brushed the hard line of his shoulder. Her pulse hammered against his wrist. He felt solid, too solid, like his body was carved from something unbreakable. He didn't speak. She finally whispered, voice trembling as she forced out a single word. Why? His eyes flicked downward to her, ice blue and unreadable. Later. Not a promise. Not a threat. A decision. He studied her face with an intensity that stripped her bare faster than the storm ever could. His gaze traced the silver glow bleeding through her wound. The air around him tightened, sharp as a blade. He knew what she was. He knew what hunted her. He knew what she carried in her veins. And he didn't flinch. Instead he leaned closer, voice dropping to something low and cold. I have waited for you. Her lungs collapsed around the words. Waited. For her. The storm remained frozen around them, holding the world still while his meaning wrapped around her like a chain she couldn't see. She should have pulled away. She should have run. She should have questioned why a stranger with power that bent nature itself would say something so heavy, so dangerous. But her body betrayed her. She didn't move. Without warning, he lifted her fully into his arms. Effortless. Controlled. As if she weighed nothing more than a drifting snowflake. Her breath caught as her body molded against the heat of his chest. Frost curled around his cloak but didn't touch her skin, not while he held her. The storm resumed around them but not against him. Wind avoided him. Snow parted for him. The forest itself seemed to open a pathway at his steps. Every instinct in her screamed this was wrong. Every instinct also whispered it was already too late to pull away. She forced her voice out, shaky but steady enough to demand something. Who are you? His jaw tightened slightly, barely noticeable except she was close enough to feel the shift. His eyes stayed forward, scanning the forest as he moved through the storm like it was no more than a curtain of dust. You do not need my name yet. The words struck her like cold water. Then tell me why you're helping me. His grip tightened a fraction, not enough to hurt, but enough to remind her she wasn't going anywhere unless he allowed it. I will tell you what you need, he said, voice low, quiet, unyielding. When you can survive hearing it. She shivered, not from cold. There was something in his tone. Something dark. Something old. Something that tasted like prophecy and danger and fate. And beneath that, something else. A pull. Magnetic. Unnatural. Wrong. Inevitable. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears as the distance between them, one she should have fought to keep, collapsed entirely. His breath brushed her temple. Rest, he murmured. I can't. Her voice cracked. Not with you. I don't even know you. He paused mid-step. The storm rumbled. The wind shifted. The forest held its breath. Slowly he looked down at her, the kind of look that pinned a soul in place. You don't need to know me, he said quietly. Your blood already does. Her body went rigid. Her pulse stumbled. Her wolf surged forward inside her, a mixture of recognition and terror burning through her veins like molten silver. She swallowed hard. What does that mean? His gaze turned forward again. It means, he said, voice colder than the snow around them, that your life is mine to save, or end. Her breath broke. The storm roared again. And he carried her deeper into the darkness. The storm softens into a dim, icy haze as Riley feels his steps beneath her, steady, deliberate, impossibly patient, as though he's carrying something fragile enough to break under the weight of a breath. And that is exactly what she feels like. Fragile. Breakable. A lie shaped into a girl's body. Her head rests weakly against his shoulder, and even through her shivering she tries to keep herself from leaning into his warmth. But her mind betrays her, slipping into the memory she has tried so hard to bury. A circle of torches. A crowd pressing in. 6 alphas standing tall and silent, shadows cast over the ceremonial stones. She remembers how every eye watched her, hungry, hopeful, horrified. She remembers the cold air sinking into her lungs as the 6 strangers circled her, their hands barely touching her shoulders, her arms, the center of her chest. She remembers how her pulse faltered, how her vision blurred, how her knees buckled. Not from fear. Not from weakness. But from something swelling inside her. Something molten. Something silver. And then the moment, sharp, blinding, when she collapsed into their arms and the entire courtyard gasped as flames flickered beneath her skin. The shame of it surges through her now, tightening her throat. The humiliation of fainting in front of them. The way the alphas recoiled from her, whispering to their betas as though she carried a sickness no one wanted to touch. She had never felt more exposed, more unwanted, more cursed. The alpha carrying her now says nothing, but something in his posture shifts, as though he senses the heaviness rolling through her, as though her memories have weight he can feel. She closes her eyes tightly, hating the part of herself that still cares what anyone thinks. Hating the memory of her body failing in front of the entire pack. Hating the whispers that clung to her for weeks afterward. The girl who fainted. The girl who sparked. The girl who didn't bond. The shame settles into her bones like old winter. And still Riley does not tell him any of it. But the storm around them seems to listen. The wind shifts again, rattling through the frost-coated branches around them like fingers brushing against an instrument tuned too sharply. Riley stiffens faintly, as though the sound carries something only she can hear. The silver inside her answers. It always does. It begins as a pulse, small, subtle, like a heartbeat that isn't hers. A warm throb under her ribs. A familiar warning. The kind she felt as a child long before she understood danger. Long before she understood herself. She remembers her grandmother's voice, careful, trembling, threaded with grief. Your blood carries more than strength, child. It carries fire that does not belong to this world. Back then, Riley thought it was a story, a bedtime tale meant to keep her near the fire instead of wandering outside alone. But then came the accident. The memory sharpens like a blade. A simple game of chase with the other children. A circle of trees. Her laughter echoing through the clearing. And then the moment she tripped, palms pressing into the mossy earth, and light surged through her skin, bright enough to scorch the cold ground beneath her. A ring of trees ignited in silver flame. Silent, cold fire that didn't burn the way normal fire should. Fire that danced without heat yet devoured bark and branch like a hunger made real. She had screamed. Her grandmother had dragged her away. The other children ran, crying that the curse had woken. Riley had not touched a forest floor with bare hands again for years. Now, as she lies against the alpha's chest, that same ember stirs in her blood, restless and dangerous. She tries to swallow it down, to chain it in the depths of herself where it belongs. But suppressing it hurts. Silver burns in both directions. She clenches her jaw to keep from crying out. The alpha notices. She can feel it in the way his grip adjusts. Not gentler, not softer, but steadier. Intentional. A silent message she doesn't understand. He shouldn't touch her. He shouldn't carry her. Not when her body is a fuse waiting for a spark. Yet he does. As though he is immune to her flames. Or worse, as though he expects them. The storm fades into a muted rumble in the distance. But inside Riley another storm rises. Quieter, older, far more painful. Memories she had hoped the blizzard would bury for her. She remembers the rocks first. Small. Throwing dust against her legs. Then the words. Ugly. Cruel. Thrown as easily as the stones. Monster. Cursed. Bad omen. She remembers covering her ears, running until her breath tore from her chest, running until her legs buckled in the grass. And still they followed. Not just children, elders too. Always the elders. It was one of them who looked her up and down, eyes cold, calculating, filled with the kind of certainty only fear gives. Too unstable, he said. As though she was a broken weapon. As though she was a threat to any future the pack dared imagine. Exile had come quietly, not as a punishment but as a precaution. They sent her away before she hurt anyone, they said. Before her unnatural power woke again. So Riley learned to live on the outskirts. Learned to sleep with one ear open. Learned to shrink herself until she barely existed. She never asked for the flames. Never asked for the bloodline she carried. And now, in the arms of an alpha she does not trust, she feels smaller than she has since those early days. Like that frightened girl crouched behind a shed, trying not to flinch at the next stone. But the alpha's steps never waver. He carries her as though nothing about her surprises him. Not even her silence. The storm eases into a pale snowfall, and the alpha moves through it like a shadow that snow refuses to cling to. Riley feels the shift in the air, the softening of the cold, the rhythm of his breathing. Slow, calm, impossible for a man who just faced down hunters unarmed. Everything about him feels deliberate. Measured. Too controlled. That is exactly why she doesn't trust him. People who hide themselves behind quiet always have something to protect. Something to use. Something to want. She says nothing, but he doesn't need her words. He can feel the tension in her shoulders, the way she refuses to lean into him even when her body trembles from exhaustion. He has not given her his name, not his pack, not his reason for knowing hers. He hasn't asked if she's hurt. He hasn't told her where he's taking her. He hasn't explained why the hunters ran. He watches her the way someone reads a prophecy unfolding in their hands, slowly, cautiously, reverently, trying not to let all betray his intentions. And that frightens her more than the hunters ever did. Because there is something unmistakable in his silence. A certainty, a claiming, a vow he has not spoken yet. And she cannot trust a man who looks at her as though he already knows how her story ends. The alpha slows for the first time since lifting Riley into his arms. The world around them shifts, subtle at first, then with a strange, deliberate hush that silences even the wind. Feels like stepping into the breath of something ancient. Something watching. Ahead through the thinning snowfall, blue light pulses beneath layers of ice. Not torchlight. Not moonlight. Something older, colder, alive in a way light should never be. The ruins rise like the ribs of a long-dead beast, arched stone pillars half swallowed by centuries of frost, each carved with symbols she's never learned but somehow recognizes in the marrow of her bones. The shrine doesn't look built. It looks grown. Formed out of ice and time, shaped by hands that understood both beauty and danger. Riley's heartbeat stumbles. She shouldn't be here. She knows that instinctively. But the alpha crosses the threshold like someone returning home. The moment her feet touch the frozen ground, the air vibrates. A low hum ripples outward, awakening a ring of runes carved into the floor. They flicker, dim at first, then ignite with a sharp blue burn that reflects in her eyes like lightning trapped beneath ice. Riley stiffens. Her power responds, uninvited, unrestrained. The silver inside her flickers dangerously beneath her skin. Her palms burn with heat, though the temperature here is colder than anything she's felt in the forest. She tries to step back, but the alpha's hand comes down around her elbow. Not forceful. Not gentle. Inevitable. The runes blaze brighter. A circle of power rises around her, humming louder and louder, as though some buried part of the shrine has woken to her presence. Her voice catches. What is this place? The alpha does not answer. But his silence tells her everything. He brought her here on purpose. And every instinct she has screams that this place has been waiting for her long before she ever knew it existed. The ruins warm with a breath of wind that doesn't belong to the storm outside. Warm, not soothing, not comforting. Warm like something brushing too close to her skin, curious, lingering. Then the whispering begins. It doesn't start in her ears. It starts in her bones. Soft voices slip between the runes, threading through the air like silk pulled across stone. Genderless. Everywhere. Nowhere. A chorus woven from thousands of years of memory. The spirits speak in a language she shouldn't understand. But she does. The one with the silver flame. Her breath stutters. Stop, she whispers, but the voices only swell as though delighted to finally be heard. Daughter of the burning bloodline. Bearer of the sleeping storm. The spark that awakens the end. Her knees almost buckle. Heat surges from the mark on her thigh, where the hunters struck her, flaring so intensely she doubles over with a strangled gasp. The alpha steps closer but not to help her. He watches, eyes bright, intense, unreadable, as though memorizing the way her body reacts, the way her power unravels, the way the shrine responds. The mark pulses again. Silver bleeding out from beneath her skin like molten metal pressing against a thin barrier. Riley grips her thigh, shaking. It hurts. Of course it hurts. This place is calling her power to the surface, ripping through every wall she built to contain it. It is not just the shrine reacting. It is the blood of her ancestors answering a summons she never agreed to. She hears the voices again, louder, layered over each other. Chosen flame. Return the balance. Awaken what was promised. Her teeth chatter, not from cold but from terror so sharp it borders on clarity. She doesn't know what they want. But she knows they know her. And that terrifies her more than the hunters did. The alpha finally speaks, his voice low, controlled, cutting through the voices like a blade through fog. They recognize you. Riley presses her hand against her thigh where the mark still burns with a silver glow. She forces the pain down her throat, swallowing it with the air she can barely catch. How do you know what they're saying? She asks. He doesn't hesitate. I've heard it before. Her stomach drops. Of course he has. He didn't stumble onto her by accident. He didn't save her out of mercy. The shrine pulses again, reacting to her spiraling fear. Frost on the pillars cracks. Veins of blue lightning crawl up the walls, illuminating runes she couldn't see moments earlier. Riley steadies herself. What does the prophecy say? He studies her with that cold, unnerving calm, the kind that hides storms, not avoids them. It speaks of a girl born with silver flame in her blood, he says. The air tightens around her. It says she will be hunted, he continues. Her breath shakes. And that she will awaken power that has slept for centuries. Riley's heart pounds so hard her vision blurs. And then what? For the first time since she met him, something flickers in his expression. Not fear. Not hesitation. Something darker. More dangerous. Like he's standing on a truth the world isn't supposed to survive. He looks away. Lightning fractures the sky outside, striking so close the shrine trembles under the force of it. The runes answer, blazing bright enough to stain the ice with burning light. Riley grabs his cloak. There's more. Tell me. He doesn't. Not because he can't. Because he won't. And that is far worse. The voices retreat into the walls, fading into a faint hum that feels like the shrine holding its breath. Riley is left standing in the middle of the glowing runes, her body shaking, her mark burning, her power uncoiling like a serpent waking from a long sleep. He feels small. He feels wrong. He feels like a mistake given a heartbeat. I'm nobody, she says quietly. It slips out before she can choke it back. The rawest truth she has ever admitted aloud. A truth shaped by years of exile, years of fear, years of being told she was too dangerous to keep, too unstable to trust, too cursed to love. The Alpha turns toward her fully. Destiny doesn't choose noise, he replies, voice deep, unyielding. It chooses power. His eyes lock on hers, arctic blue, unblinking, terrifying in their certainty. And power, he says, stepping into the circle of runes with her, chooses you. Her pulse stumbles. Because she hears it, the way he says you, like it isn't a fact but a vow. Like he believes it more than she believes anything about herself. Like he has been waiting for this moment far longer than she has been running from it. The runes flare one final time as though sealing something neither of them can take back. The shrine goes still. The prophecy breathes. And Riley is left standing at the center of a destiny she never asked for. With a man who seems determined to make sure she cannot run from it anymore. He didn't shout. He didn't move like the panic around them. He simply stepped forward, each stride cutting through the blizzard with a confidence that made Riley's chest tighten. The shadow wolves halted, momentarily confused by his presence. But instinct is older than reason. They attacked anyway. Riley's knees buckled beneath her. Her hands shook uncontrollably. Silver sparks leapt along her arms and legs like tiny serpents, burning her skin, singing her nerves. One false move and she could engulf herself in her own uncontrolled power. Her pulse hammered in her ears. Her vision blurred between white snow, black shapes, and flashes of silver fire. She wanted to vanish, to dissolve into the storm, but her wolf side roared. Fight. The Alpha moved as if born to war. His movements were deliberate, predatory, lethal. Shadow wolves fell back with each calculated strike, not killed but thrown. Pushed aside by invisible force, his aura bending them like wind bends grass. Riley's breath caught in her throat. She had never seen anything like him. And yet, even in the moment of awe, terror clawed at her chest. Her hands ignited involuntarily again. The silver flame danced along the edges of the ice, bright and blinding. One of the shadow wolves lunged, jaws snapping inches from her arm, and instinct took over. She flung a burst of fire, almost burning herself. Pain seared her bones, a reminder that her gift was a curse when untamed. He didn't touch her. He simply stood beside her, letting her fight, or almost fight, her own chaos, his eyes frozen on the darkness beyond. The wind carried another sound, a horn low and deliberate, calling in a language Riley did not know but felt in her marrow. Then the ice cracked under countless steps. Figures appeared, emerging from the storm like phantoms. His pack. Elite warriors cloaked in fur and shadow, their eyes gleaming with recognition, with suspicion. They circled around Riley, forming a ring tighter than any prison. Each step of theirs carried authority. Each gaze questioned the Alpha's choice. "Why is she here?" one demanded, voice sharp like a blade scraping stone. "She is not of our kind," another whispered. "A curse in flesh. Dangerous." Riley swallowed, trembling. She felt the weight of 100 unspoken judgments pressing against her chest. She wanted to apologize. She wanted to vanish. She wanted the storm to carry her away so no one had to see the power that terrified them. The Alpha stepped forward, his figure cutting through the snow like a dark statue. His voice, low and chilling, answered the questioning pack. "She comes because I chose her," he said. A murmur rose. A mix of anger and fear, disbelief and caution. Riley's heart hammered. He chose her. And yet their stares made her feel like a weapon, like a threat, like something to be feared. Her wolf growled softly in her mind, not at them but at the impossibility of being wanted here. The pack's leader, a towering figure with silver-streaked fur and eyes like cracked ice, stepped forward. He did not bow. He did not soften. His voice carried the weight of tradition, judgment, and power. "She is an omen," he said. "A cursed flame. She cannot walk among us without doom following." Riley froze, every muscle tight. Heat burned beneath her skin, not just from the cold, not just from the silver fire, but from humiliation. She had been hunted, exiled, feared her entire life. And here she was being accused again, publicly, in the presence of those who had the power to condemn her. "You brought her here?" the leader hissed, eyes narrowing like knives. The Alpha did not flinch. "I did," he said simply. "And I will not regret it." Another voice, rising from the circle, pierced the snowstorm. "Reject her. Reject her now or doom your kingdom." Riley's stomach dropped. Kingdom. Not just pack. Kingdom. Her presence could destroy everything this man had built. Her very existence, her uncontrolled power, could unravel a world she did not want to touch. Her body trembled. She wanted to step back, to vanish, to shrink into the snow and melt into nothing. But the Alpha's eyes, those icy, unyielding eyes, kept her rooted. They were not warm. They were not comforting. They were impossible. And yet they promised something. Something dangerous. Something she was terrified to grasp. The Alpha's gaze swept across the pack. His jaw tightened. His hands curled at his sides. The storm raged around them, snow whipping at faces, wind howling through pillars of ice. And then the choice was made. He did not reach for her. Not yet. He could not. Not in front of them. Riley felt her heart shatter quietly in her chest as he turned his attention away, his focus locked on his pack. She understood, even if she didn't want to, that his duty, his loyalty, demanded he protect them first. He wanted to scream. He wanted to fight. She wanted to tear the world apart with her bare hands and prove that she was not the danger they claimed she was. But she couldn't. Not now. With trembling legs she stepped back into the snow, shoulders hunched, chin tucked low. The silver mark on her thigh pulsed, a quiet reminder that even now, even humiliated, even forced to leave, she was still dangerous. Still chosen. Still fire. The Alpha watched her go, eyes stormy, conflicted, unreadable. She didn't dare look back, though part of her wanted to see him one last time. One last promise that she wasn't completely alone. The pack muttered behind her, judgment in every glance. The wind tore at her hair, her fire, her breath. She walked through the storm, shamed, exiled again, the weight of prophecy pressing down on her like ice. And still, somewhere deep in her chest, a spark refused to die. Because though she had been forced to leave, though the world had rejected her once again, she knew she was not finished. Not yet. Not while the silver fire inside her still burned. Not while destiny had its claws sunk deep into her bones. And not while he had not yet claimed her as more than a fleeting shadow in the storm. Riley's knees were pressed to the frozen ground beside a stream so still it mirrored the night sky. Her tears fell silently onto the ice, melting in tiny silver droplets that reflected the faint moonlight. Each sob felt like a fracture in her chest. She had run, she had survived, and yet the world had not stopped trying to break her. The Alpha appeared then. Not a shadow this time. Not a predator stalking. He simply stepped from between the skeletal trees, his presence a sudden warmth against the biting cold. The wind swirled, but around him it seemed to pause, bending away as if respecting him. He sat beside her without a word. Not a question. Not a command. Just presence. Quiet, unwavering. And Riley noticed for the first time that he did not judge her tears. He did not flinch at the silver glow that pulsed faintly along her skin. Her wolf, curled tightly inside her chest, sniffed the air cautiously. Part of her wanted to flee, but part of her, a small, fragile part, leaned toward him, drawn like a moth to a dangerous flame. "Why are you here?" she whispered, voice cracking. The words were almost lost to the wind. He did not answer immediately. He let her speak, let her hurt, let her tremble. Finally, his voice cut through the quiet, low and rough like gravel under ice. "I've lost more than I can name," he said. His eyes, cold as glaciers, softened only slightly as they fell on her. "A mate I loved, stolen before she even knew the world. My throne, empty, waiting for me to sit, but cold, untouchable. And the traitor in my council, someone I trusted with my life, who would have burned everything I built if I let him." Riley flinched, but not from fear. His pain pressed against her chest, familiar in a way she hadn't expected. She had carried rejection, humiliation, exile. But this, his suffering was raw, public yet hidden. It invited empathy, demanded it. She wanted to touch him, to tell him that she understood, but her own shame made her freeze. Her hands trembled. Her wolf whispered, "Run. It's dangerous. He is danger." Yet her heart throbbed, louder than fear, and urged her forward. He turned slightly toward her, his expression sharp but haunted. "And now, you are here." He didn't accuse. He didn't praise. He simply stated the truth. "And I do not know if that is salvation, or another storm I cannot control." Her throat tightened. She wanted to speak, to say something that would bridge the chasm between them, but the weight of their shared solitude pressed her lips together. Instead, she let her eyes meet his, searching for something, a lifeline, a hint of trust, a flicker of understanding. I've never shown anyone," Riley whispered, her voice almost swallowed by the wind. "Not fully. Not like this." She flexed her hand, and the faint silver flame that always pulsed beneath her skin bloomed softly across her palm, weaving sparks into the air like living threads of light. He didn't flinch. He didn't recoil. Instead, his hand reached toward hers, deliberate, careful. When his fingers brushed against hers, the flame responded, arching higher, licking around her skin, but it didn't burn him. "I've been told I'm dangerous," she admitted, voice shaking. "That I can't control it. That it will destroy me or anyone who comes too close." He studied her for a long moment, his arctic blue eyes tracing every flicker of light, every quiver of her lips, every flash of fear behind her gaze. "Danger doesn't mean wrong," he said quietly. "And power is never yours to hide. It's yours to decide what it becomes." Her heart stuttered. Nobody had ever spoken to her like that. Not her pack, not her elders, not the strangers at the ceremony. She was supposed to be feared, contained, rejected. But here, in this frozen clearing, beside this man who was danger itself, she felt seen. Fully, recklessly seen. Her wolf stirred inside her chest, restless but oddly calm. Fear and longing twisted together, and she realized that she wanted to trust him. Wanted to let him in. But the old rules, the scars of exile, the pain of being hunted, made her hesitate. The moon was high now, spilling silver over the ice like a soft promise. Riley's breath hitched as he leaned closer, the wind whipping strands of her hair across his face. Their eyes locked, and for a heartbeat the world shrank to the space between them. The curve of his jaw, the tremor in her hands, the faint warmth radiating from his touch. Their lips hovered, so close that the frost in the air seemed to sizzle. The tension was unbearable, electric, a silent roar of desire and fear coiling in her chest. Her wolf growled softly, warning her, but her heart screamed to let go. And then a sharp crack. A branch breaking somewhere in the frozen forest. The sound tore through the stillness like a gunshot. Riley jolted back, stumbling over her own feet. He caught her elbow, steadying her, but the moment had shattered, the fragile intimacy ripped away by the world outside. The snow fell heavier now, as if the storm itself mourned the lost connection. Her cheeks burned, not from the cold, but from the raw vulnerability of nearly letting herself feel something she'd been told she couldn't have. He didn't speak. He didn't apologize. He just held her gaze, steady, silent, acknowledging the almost kiss, the almost trust, the almost complete surrender of fear. And in that quiet, Riley realized something terrifying. He was drawn to him. Completely. Unstoppably. Her wolf snarled in protest, telling her to run, telling her to hide. But her heart, her stubborn, fragile, defiant heart, said something else. Riley froze mid-step as a cold hand, swift, practiced, slipped under her cloak and ripped it from her shoulders. The mark she had tried so hard to hide, the silver sigil etched into her skin, burned with immediate intensity, now fully exposed to the world. Gasps echoed through the clearing. The Council of Elders, faces hard and unyielding beneath their frosted hoods, stepped forward as if closing in on a predator. Their eyes were sharp, accusatory, filled with fear and judgment. "She carries the flame," one of them hissed, voice slicing through the murmurs of the gathered pack. "She cannot be trusted." Another shook his head, a grim expression twisting his face. "This is the one the prophecy spoke of, the child of the silver flame." Riley's chest tightened, a weight pressing down on her lungs. Every eye in the clearing now burned into her, dissecting her. Whispers curled around her like a living thing. Danger, doom, power, chaos. She felt naked. Not the physical kind, but the kind where the soul is exposed, vulnerable, untethered. She wanted to run. She wanted to sink into the snow and disappear. But she couldn't. Every muscle screamed with exhaustion, but her pride, fragile yet stubborn, forced her to stand. The council's voices grew louder, chanting, condemning. "She will destroy us." The words rang sharp and clear. Riley's stomach churned. Some of the younger wolves, emboldened by the elders' fear, began throwing small stones. Others pointed, shouting accusations she had never heard before, words twisting like knives. "She is cursed," one shouted. "She is the ruin of our pack," another cried. Riley's heart hammered, a wild rhythm against her ribs. Every accusation carved into her like ice. The cold wind whipped around her, carrying their voices, mixing with the silver fire pulsing beneath her skin. Her wolf inside snarled, desperate, telling her to fight, to lash out, to protect herself. But Riley's human heart felt too heavy with humiliation, shame, and fear. She wanted to believe that he, her alpha, would speak, would defend her. But he didn't. He stood just steps away, tall, powerful, cloaked in darkness and frost, eyes fixed on her with that unreadable, icy intensity. For a moment the world seemed to pause. Wind frozen mid-whirl, snow suspended in air, even the pack around them caught in anticipation. She searched his eyes. Desperately. Hoping. Pleading. I, he began, voice low, hesitant. But the words never came. Time stretched, dragging every heartbeat into an unbearable eternity. Riley's chest felt as if it were being squeezed, her lungs pressing against ribs that no longer seemed to belong to her. The pack's chanting swelled, drowning out reason, suffocating her in their fear. Her heart shattered in that moment. The man who had saved her, who had seen her truth, who had made her feel almost safe, he did not step forward. She understood immediately. He was torn. His loyalty to his pack, to tradition, to power outweighed his instinct to protect her. He wanted to scream. He wanted to curse. He wanted to collapse and never move again. But the silver flame inside her did not wait for permission. A tremor ran through the frozen ground beneath her feet, faint at first, then violent. Riley's hands clenched at her sides, nails digging into the snow, her body trembling as the silver flame surged uncontrollably. The altar, ancient, sacred, untouched for centuries, cracked beneath the force of her power. Runes she had never seen before flared, glowing with a brilliance that mirrored her panic, her rage, her terror, her grief. Her breath came in sharp, ragged bursts, hot against the icy air. Snow swirled around her in chaotic spirals, whipped by a wind that seemed born of her very emotions. "Stop. Riley, stop," he shouted, voice breaking the storm, but it barely reached her. Her wolf roared in tandem with her anger, silver fire leaping off her skin like serpents of light. She ran, stumbling, breaking through the outer circle of the council, her flames leaving burn marks in the snow, scorched paths behind her. Every ounce of control she had ever known slipped away. Her power was raw, untamed, alive. It pulsed with memory, with prophecy, with fear, and it demanded release. She didn't look back. Couldn't. The cries of the pack, the judgment, the betrayal, They were drowned by the roar of fire and ice, the crack of ancient earth beneath her feet. And as the silver light spiraled around her, as the wind howled like the wolves themselves were mourning, Riley realized something terrifying and exhilarating. She was no longer the hunted. He was the storm. And nothing, not pack, not council, not betrayal, could stop her now. The wind dropped suddenly, leaving an eerie, suffocating silence in the aftermath of Riley's uncontrolled storm. Snow no longer fell in chaotic spirals, but hung motionless in the air, frozen like the moment itself. The pack's screams had faded, replaced by a low, sinister growl that seemed to seep from the shadows themselves. From the edge of the clearing he emerged. The Dark Alpha. Not just a wolf, not just a man. Something in between, forged in cruelty and hunger, wrapped in black furs that seemed to absorb the faint moonlight. His eyes glowed a molten amber, a color that burned through Riley's vision, making her stomach twist with both fear and fury. "I've been waiting," he said, his voice silk over steel, each word deliberate, dripping with malice. "The silver flame belongs to me. And soon, you will be mine or nothing will remain." Riley's jaw clenched, silver light pulsing through her veins, her heart hammering like a drum in her chest. She could feel it, the pressure, the inevitability, the cruel weight of destiny pressing down on her shoulders. The Dark Alpha raised his hand and shadows coalesced around it, writhing like living things, whispering threats, promising pain, promising death. "I am not yours," Riley said, voice trembling yet sharp. "I am not your sacrifice. I am not your weapon." The Alpha's smirk was a blade. "We'll see how long your courage lasts, child of silver." The shadow beast stirs. And it hungers. Even as he spoke, the ground beneath them quivered. Dark smoke seeped from cracks in the frozen earth. Riley's silver mark burned hotter, thrumming with awareness, as if the world itself recognized the danger now, recognized her potential. Then, as suddenly as the storm had ended, Riley's fear fractured. Something inside her shifted. Something primal, unyielding, refusing to bow, refusing to break. Her silver eyes ignited, glowing with raw, undeniable power. "I choose my own fate," she whispered, each word vibrating with authority. It was no longer a plea. No longer a confession. It was a declaration. The pack fell silent. Even the wind seemed to pause, listening. She stepped forward, each footfall leaving sparks in the snow, silver fire licking at the frozen ground without consuming it. She was no longer trembling. No longer hiding. She was the storm, the hunter, the prophecy realized. The Dark Alpha's smirk faltered. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in his amber eyes. You dare." Riley's laugh cut through the air, sharp and bright, carrying both defiance and exhilaration. "I don't dare. I am." And she meant it. Every heartbeat, every pulse of flame through her veins, every scar, every memory, every moment of exile and humiliation had led to this. The silver flame in Riley's blood erupted, twisting and writhing like a living entity. It rose above her, stretching, expanding, transforming. It coalesced into the form of a phoenix, fiery yet pure, incandescent yet otherworldly. Wings of light spread wide, feathers sparking with power, illuminating the ancient ruins surrounding them. The ground trembled beneath the clearing. Stones lifted from the earth as if obeying some ancient rhythm only Riley could hear. Cracks formed in the frozen surface, glowing blue and silver with runes that had lain dormant for centuries. Riley's wolf howled from within, blending with the energy, merging with the phoenix, with the fire, with the prophecy. She was no longer fragile. She was elemental. She was inevitable. And still her gaze was locked on the Dark Alpha. Not with fear. Not with hatred. But with recognition, of the challenge, of the destiny, of the power she could wield and the responsibility she had finally accepted. He appeared then, the cold Alpha King. Silent, formidable, frost curling from his boots, his cloak glinting with shards of moonlight. He stepped beside Riley, their combined aura shaking the very air, their presence bending the wind into spirals of silver and ice. Riley felt it immediately. The pull. The magnetic, dangerous pull she had felt the first time he carried her through the storm. But now it was stronger, fiercer. Not just attraction, not just connection, but partnership. Alliance. The merging of power, human and wolf, flame and frost, destiny and choice. The Dark Alpha snarled, shadows lashing out from his form, clawing at reality itself. Together. You dare. Riley's eyes flared. The phoenix stretched its wings, stretching the silver fire into spirals that coiled around the enemy, around the ruins, around the very air between them. The cold Alpha King raised his hand, frost and ice swirling into jagged spears, forming a wall of brilliance beside her. We dare, he said, voice steady, carrying the weight of loss, of pain, of love, and of unshakable conviction. The world trembled beneath them. Snow and ice swirled violently, wind howling, earth cracking, magic and bloodline power clashing against centuries of shadow and malice. Riley's chest burned, her wolf roared, and yet, she felt more alive than ever. More herself. The final standoff had begun. The battle was not just for survival. Not just for life. It was for destiny, for choice, for the right to exist on her own terms. Riley lifted her chin. Her phoenix form glowed brighter, wings unfurling like a halo of pure defiance. The cold Alpha King's frost formed a barrier beside her, protective yet ready to strike. Together they were a force the world had not seen in centuries, an unstoppable convergence of silver flame and ice, of human heart and wolf soul. The dark Alpha lunged, shadows flaring. Riley met him, silver flame roaring, every ounce of her power, her pain, her past, converging into a singular, unstoppable force. And in that moment the world itself seemed to hold its breath. The mountains, the snow, the frozen ruins, they waited to see if prophecy would bend. If destiny could be claimed. If Riley, the girl who had run barefoot through a frozen forest, terrified and hunted, would rise and command the storm she was born to wield. Her wolf and her heart beat as one. Her phoenix wings flared. The cold Alpha King at her side radiated strength and protection, silent but unwavering. The first strike of destiny had been cast. And nothing, not betrayal, not fear, not death, could turn her back. The ruins smoked around her, a delicate haze of ash and frost curling in the air like spectral fingers. Riley's chest heaved, her silver flames fading slowly, leaving her heart exposed and raw. Her wings of fire had retracted, settling into a quiet ember beneath her skin, but the heat still throbbed inside her, a reminder that she had claimed her power, yet the world was not done testing her. She turned her gaze toward the cold Alpha King. He stood a few paces away, frost still glinting from his cloak, eyes unwavering, steady, solid like the mountain stone that had birthed him. But in the shadows of his gaze, Riley saw hesitation, a ripple of something she had never expected, uncertainty. Her voice barely broke the crackling air. Would you have chosen me, or feared me too? It wasn't a demand. It was not an accusation. It was the echo of every scar, every betrayal, every time the world had told her she was dangerous, unworthy, a curse. It was vulnerability carved into a question, a fragile offering laid bare in the midst of ruin and victory. The cold Alpha King's jaw tightened. His eyes softened, almost imperceptibly, as though he carried centuries of judgment, loss, and loyalty in every line of his face. He didn't answer immediately. He stepped closer, careful, deliberate. The wind howled between them, carrying ash and the scent of silver fire, carrying the weight of destiny and choice. Riley's fingers twitched, reaching for warmth, for certainty, for a connection that had been denied for too long. Her wolf nudged at her, alert and cautious, but it was also drawn to the presence of the Alpha who had stood by her, who had faced death beside her. She wanted to believe. She needed to believe. Yet even in that belief there was fear. Fear that the moment could fracture, that power could overwhelm, that love could be just another kind of danger. She swallowed hard, letting the question linger in the smoke-choked silence. It was more than words. It was a heartbeat, a thread dangling in the balance, a truth yet to be claimed. The ashes swirled in the freezing night air, drifting like memories that refused to settle. Riley's mark pulsed faintly, a soft silver heartbeat visible just beneath her skin, flickering like the promise of a new dawn. If her fire lit something inside you, fear, longing, awe, or wonder, then this is the place to stay. Subscribe to Anne's Romance Collections. Here we tell tales that burn. Tales that haunt, that scorch, that whisper in the night and leave a trail of embers across your imagination. Because stories like Riley's, stories of power, of fear, of love that refuses to bend, only begin in the dark. Riley and the cold Alpha King began to move away from the ruins, each step deliberate, cautious, yet forward-looking. The snow crunched beneath their boots, echoing softly against the remnants of shattered stone and frost-covered earth. The battle had ended, but the tension lingered, a taut cord strung between the past and the future. Then beneath their feet the ground trembled. Not violently but deliberately, a subtle quake that sent a shiver through Riley's bones. She froze, every instinct alive, every sense stretched taut. Cracks spiderwebbed across the snow and ice, glowing faintly silver. It was a reminder. The world had not finished testing her. The shadows were still watching. The fire had not yet fully burned out. From the darkness of the surrounding trees, a voice hissed low, chilling and threaded with menace. It carried across the frozen clearing, rattling the silence like a warning from the deep earth. She is not the only one. The words reverberated through Riley's chest, threading into her wolf, whispering of hidden threats, of others like her, of battles yet to come. A ripple of anticipation and dread slid across her spine. She tightened her fists, silver fire flickering, her body half human, half wolf, entirely alive in that moment of looming revelation. The cold Alpha King's gaze narrowed. He stepped closer, protective yet alert, reading the unspoken threat in the shadows. Their alliance, their bond would be tested again. But for now they remained side by side, eyes locked on the unseen danger, muscles tense, hearts ready. Riley's mark pulsed one final time, glowing bright in the darkness, a single heartbeat of defiance and power. Then, as though the night itself swallowed it, the light blinked out, leaving only the whispering wind and the soft, frozen silence. The camera of imagination lingers here, on the ruins, on the snow, on the question that hangs. Who else waits? Who else rises? What other fires will light the darkness? And then, darkness swallows the world, leaving only the echo of her story, waiting for the next spark to ignite it.